It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin here at home as President Tinubu warns that despite 5 decades of progress, ECOWAS still faces grave security challenges. He urges regional leaders to adopt a unified approach to tackling these threats, expressing concern over delays in activating the force. Tinubu says he is a little bit worried about the slow pace of its activation, which is taking longer than desired. Arise correspondent Punariman Benjamin reports.
The 67th ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government has ended in Abuja, Nigeria. The summit draws 8 regional presidents, ministers, diplomats, and key stakeholders from across West Africa. As President Bola Tinubu's 2-year tenure as ECOWAS chair comes to an end, he's calling for stronger and faster security interventions across the sub-region, especially in tackling terrorism and instability.
We must act decisively to operationalize the ECOWAS standby force on the fight against terrorism to serve as an instrument for peace and stability for our region. I am pleased to note that under my stewardship as the chair of authority, the ECOWAS military logistic depot in Lungui, Sierra Leone, has been completed.
In his acceptance speech, newly elected ECOWAS chairman and president of Sierra Leone, Julius Maada Bio, laid out 4 key priorities for his administration.
We are still confronting insecurity in the Sahel and coastal states. Terrorism, political instability, illicit arms flow, and transnational organized crimes continue to test the resilience of our nations and the effectiveness of our institutions. First, restoring constitutional order and deepening democracy. We must engage transitional governments constructively and support member states in building stronger democratic institutions rooted in the rule of law. Second, revitalizing regional security cooperation. We must overhaul our collective security architecture. Third, unlocking economic integration. The ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, regional infrastructure, and cross-border value chains must become engines of job, building institutional credibility. ECOWAS must reform itself and become more transparent, efficient, and responsive.
At the end of the session, ECOWAS leadership reaffirmed its commitment to deploying the standby force despite ongoing financial constraints affecting the bloc.
The threat we are facing cannot be handled by one country alone. This is why joint efforts are important. And this is why the President is saying that we need to act fast on the ECOWAS standby force.
Julius Bio is now the new head of the ECOWAS Heads of State and Government. He's coming at a time where the region is urgently in need of action on insecurity, unemployment, economic challenges, and a host of other challenges bedeviling the region. Citizens will only hope that his tenure will bring about unity, peace, hope for all citizens. Punariman Benjamin, Arise News.
Now, on to other news. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, yesterday said the submission by a former governor of Jigawa State, Alhaji Sule Lamido, that President Bola Tinubu sold out on the June 12 struggle was proof that he was suffering from memory loss, describing the statement as appalling. Alake, who appeared on Arise TV's Newsnight to debunk Lamido's narrative of the developments that shaped what has now been largely accepted as the country's freest and fairest election, explained that Lamido's version of what transpired was false. According to him, it smacked of gross revisionism for Lamido to say that President Tinubu supported the annulment of the June 12 mandate, stressing that the current president was with Abiola before, during, and after the June 12 election. This was as the presidency too yesterday reacted to Lamido's allegations, saying contrary to his claims, it was he, Lamido, and his comrades who sold out the June 12 struggle of the late Chief MKO Abiola with the late Sani Abacha junta. Now to constitutional matters and what may become the most transformative review of Nigeria's 1999 constitution since the return to civil rule in 1999, the Senate has unveiled 60 bills on an expansive reform agenda aimed at restructuring governance, deepening democracy and addressing long-standing national agitations. The Senate Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution, chaired by Deputy Senate President Senator Jibrin Barao, is set to hold simultaneous two-day zonal public hearings across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones on July 4th and 5th of this year. The hearings, according to a statement yesterday by the Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Office of the Deputy Senate President Ishmael Mudashir, will engage citizens and stakeholders on the over 60 proposed amendments, 40 of which are meant to create 40 states. The bills, ranging from the establishment of state police and local government autonomy to diaspora voting and electoral reforms, are aimed at reshaping the polity. Now, finally, the official handover ceremony of 119 Benin bronzes took place over the weekend at the National Museum in Lagos, marking a major milestone in Nigeria's efforts to reclaim its looted heritage. Returned from the Netherlands after more than a century, the artifacts not only represent cultural pride for Nigeria, but also signal a growing international commitment to restitution and historical justice. Arise entertainment and culture correspondent Shaitan Atigarin has the story.
Coming home, tell the world I'm coming home.
A moment in time rich with symbolism, celebration, and national pride, Nigeria welcomed home 119 Benin bronzes from the Netherlands. The official handover ceremony, which featured 4 of the returned artworks on public display, was held at the National Museum in Lagos and brought together cultural custodians, government officials, diplomats, artists, and members of the Benin Royal Court. Nigeria's Minister of Arts, Culture, Tourism and the Creative Economy, Hannatu Musa Musawa, described the return as a pivotal moment in Nigeria's cultural renaissance, and representing the Netherlands, Ambassador for International Cultural Cooperation Dewi van der Woerd noted that the return was unconditional, a gesture meant to acknowledge colonial injustices, reaffirming the role of cultural restitution in repairing past wrongs.
It's really restoring the history that was stolen from Nigeria. There was a lot of pain, a lot of loss that happened to our ancestors. You know, we talk about always Nigeria being a beautifully diverse country, and it's true. Every part of Nigeria has something unique to offer. But I think we have to acknowledge that there are aspects of us as a people that really makes Nigeria be the standout country that it is today. And we have to acknowledge that the Benin bronzes is part of that expression of not just culture, our heritage, I said of our values, of our ideals, of the pains of our ancestors. So, you know, the return of them for me as a Nigerian is watching history happen, a history that will be able to right the wrongs of the past, and history that can continue to empower our future. Is so profound, and it's a shining moment for me.
For the Netherlands, it's important to return the artifacts unconditionally, because these artifacts belong to Nigeria, and this is where they have to be and where people should be able to go and see them. Yes, so the Netherlands has adopted a policy on restitution of artifacts coming from a colonial heritage. And so we have been restituting already to different countries. So for us, this is part of our policy. And what we intend to do is to continue it with those countries that have artifacts that they think they belong, that belong to them.
Those who are familiar with what took place, in 1897 they came into Benin, burned the city down, looted his artifacts and many other things, and they were taken away to England. From there, they were sold and distributed all over the world. But due to the relented effort of Oba Akenzua and our current Oba, you know, he's a diplomat, a man who's well-read, well-traveled. He put the necessary mechanism in place that is seeing the return of this artifact back to its original owner. Even despite the fact that some people, some miscreants within the country wanted to reloot this artifact, but the Oba of Benin stood firm, and the great people of Benin stood with him. The federal government did a wonderful job, the Edo State government, and here we are.
I am the eldest daughter to my father, the Oba of Benin.
In an emotional speech representing her father, the first daughter to the Oba of Benin, accompanied by members of the royal court, spoke about the historical significance of the return. Just as the Director General of the National Commission for Museums and Monuments, Olubile Holloway, highlighted the preparedness of the commission in handling the returned artifacts.
It's beyond words, really, because the genesis of this whole story began when I wasn't even born, you weren't born, and the British came, looted so much of our artifacts. So to have a part of our history returned is one that is such a magnificent and historic event, one that will be remembered for years to come, one that will be taught in schools to children. So I am highly honored as my father sent me here, and it's such a rare opportunity for me, one that I am so grateful and highly honored to be here, to basically witness this ceremony and be a part of it.
It means a lot, historically, spiritually, culturally, and traditionally, educatively, and otherwise. It means a lot to us holistically as a nation, as a Benin nation. It means a lot to us.
A lot of museums around the world, when we talk about returning our objects, always approach that topic with a lot of skepticism. The next question is, can they even keep them? Can they display them? What's going to happen to them? I think the time has come for a lot of these myths and stereotypes to be shattered. The NCMM has a solid plan. We have partnered with Coronation Group to develop a world-class gallery display. The gallery will be located in our Oba Varawan storage facility in Benin, and Coronation Group have graciously agreed to help us fund the development of this gallery.
For many within the creative industry in attendance, the restitution was more than symbolic. It was deeply personal. Actor Wale Ojo, who made a donation towards the return of the bronzes, called it a proud and emotional moment. Others echoed the sentiment, describing the experience as a powerful source of inspiration and cultural affirmation.
Today is a great day for me personally. It's a day of joy. And I feel a sense of achievement because a lot of people don't know, but my charity has been championing return of Benin bronzes for a very long time. I was there when the British Museum released some bronzes to me years ago, and here we are now, and I have to applaud the government of the Netherlands for this very, very humanitarian and social gesture to our country.
I was born in Benin and I grew up in Benin, so I've been hearing about the artifacts that was taken to the Netherlands right from childhood. So seeing this today is like creating history, and I'm present in the history. So it's a great privilege to be present, and it's actually influenced my art, because coming from a place where art is very, very important, like the Benin city, and coming to Lagos and seeing this occasion today is a very important day in my life and history.
With 4 of the returned bronzes now unveiled to the public and 115 safely back in Benin, it's clear that this was more than a diplomatic event. It was a cultural reckoning. The return of these priceless artifacts marks a significant shift in global museum ethics as it ignites new energy in Nigeria's creative and cultural sectors. Sheiton Ategarin, Arise News, Lagos.
Of course, we continue to celebrate the return of the Benin bronzes from 1897 to 2025. What a journey it's been.
I mean, what else do we say? Our bronzes are back, and what a journey. But I'd like to make a point on two other subjects. Number one will be the case of June 12th. I'm very sad this morning that politicians have now turned how to, rewrite the history of June 12th into a politicking situation. Let's not do that. I saw the allegations and counter-allegations. Let's not do that. It's not fair. It's not fair to the memory of a man that had the mandate, MK Abiola, and that never lived the mandate. It's not fair to the families of that man that his life was decimated. His family will never recover from it. It's not fair. It's not fair on the memories of a lot of people that lost their lives, the likes of Bagada Kaltos of this world, and other people that died, that they never even saw the democracy they fought for. And today I'm going to say it straight and plain. Let's leave June 12th out of our politicking. You might not like him, but the current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, played a significant role in June 12th. And let's stop playing politics with that. He played a significant role. Further references on this. Segun Adeniyi wrote a book recently about June 12th. That was not just a book, but that was a reproduction of the Hansas, the parliamentary records in the Senate. Please go back and read that book and see the arguments Bola Ahmed Tinubu made and how he stood tall. You know me, I don't agree with Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President Tinubu, on many things. But on that, you cannot deny the role he played. And that's a reference book. And you can also seek other Hansas of the conversations, the likes of Iyorchia Ayu, the role they also played. And how Iyorchia Ayu was pulled out and Ame Ebute had to come in. So please, let's stop this back and forth and trying to do all sorts to the memory of June 12th. Because the real heroes are those that lost their life, that they never saw the democracy they fought for. We can politic, but a very seminal moment like that in our lives is not what we should take to the political slaughter slab and try to revisit history. It's not fair. Secondly, as regards to constitutional reform, yes, we've always pushed for constitutional reforms. But a couple of things I'm against is the state creation. That is also on the bill of things that are going to be reviewed. Can we afford the states we even have now in Nigeria as we speak? The argument is no. You're just going to create more bureaucracies for people to live on and do nothing. State creation will not solve the incompetence and the greed of the political class. Having an effective political structure that works for us will go a long way in ameliorating the greed and incompetence of the political class. So it is when you create states, for instance, people have talked about many states to be created, that you will know that the people you are creating the states for are way more divided. There's also a need, yes, for judicial reforms and devolution of more powers. Those are arguments that are valid. Diaspora voting is what we've always talked about. Because these people can bring close to $30 billion US into the economy, and you don't give them a chance to be able to vote. Also, one I would also like to push for is independent candidacy. This overarching, mentality that a political party must decide your fate and how you can come out and run for elective position in this country. That's another one we'd like to put in there. And many other, reforms we want in the Constitution. So we would like them to release the venues for this regional talks we'll be having and how we can, engage even more importantly. I yield the floor because of time.
Okay, very quickly, let's start with June 12. I think it's very unfortunate that history is not taught in Nigerian schools. And so we rely on history, on versions, by word of mouth. What are hung in a book called Orality and Literacy it talks about the conflict between orality and literacy. So people who construct or reconstruct or revise or report history do so from, that gap between orality and literacy. They just talk. And 1993, that's about 32 years ago. So many people may have forgotten the story. So you have these various versions. It's not history as told by the historians, by the experts. It's history as narrated by those who call themselves, who ascribe roles to them in that story, which is most unfortunate. And that is why we say history should be taught. History should be supported, because when you do that, you construct memory. You do not leave it to the whims and caprices of commentators or bystanders, or what is that other word the president used. However, in this particular case of June 12, you cannot deny the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was one of the persons who played a role. Some persons have written their own accounts. Heroes of Democracy by Joe Igbokwe, the book by June 12 by Segun Adeniyi is titled The Ghost of June 12, where Segun Adeniyi tries to frame the story as a journalist and report what happened. There's also the account by Honorable Wale Oshun, where we already have some form of documentation by people who wrote as the history occurred and almost immediately after. But you have Alhaji Sule Lamido, 32 years after, giving his own version of the story. The important thing about June 12 is the significance of it. The fact that we had an election on June 12, 1993, that was considered the freest and the fairest in the history of Nigeria, in the history of Nigeria's democracy, and the military annulled that election. And now 32 years after, we're arguing over who played the role. No, the key message of the protesters, whether it was Nadeco or it was Nalecon or it was CDHR, is that never should such a thing happen in this country again. June 12 was about the will of the people expressing themselves freely and voting for Chief MKO Abiola. All the other details that persons who were involved are bringing up. No, the story of June 12 is not about them. The story is about the exit of military rule. The story is about the martyrdom of Chief MKO Abiola and all the others who died in the course of that struggle. Now there are survivors, people who have been there. No, it's very ugly for the survivors to be fighting. I played this role, you played that role, I played more role than you, my Mercedes is bigger than yours. No, that's not where the real significance of June 12 lies. And I think that on June 12 this year, President Tinubu did well by honoring some of the people. There were omissions, which I have said previously, that can be corrected. And I think President Buhari also did well, by identifying June 12 as a pivotal historic moment in Nigerian history, and President Tinubu, following up on that, has added to that. I think that iconization, that symbolization, that restitution, if I may use that word, is what we should focus on. Not my Mercedes is bigger than yours, I played a bigger role, and all that. Well, at the end of the day, Alhaji Lamido did not say President Tinubu did not play a role, but he's just trying to reconstruct whatever role he played. No, we're not interested in this reconstruction. We're interested in the significance of June 12 itself, and for those who have, moved this country forward after 1993, after 1999, for them to continue to remain devoted to the ideal of June 12. Chief MKO Abiola preached a philosophy of farewell to poverty. And it was on the basis of that people sang, MKO is our man, oh. We want that farewell to poverty. That's what we are interested in. Not my Mercedes is bigger than yours. I played a better role than you. No, please. Now, number two, about the artifacts. Yeah, I think last year, a London museum released 75 objects. But in the UK, they have this National Heritage Act of 1983. There's also an existing law of 1963, on the basis of which the British, who have in fact most of the artifacts, over 1,000, after all, It was the British that led the expedition of 1897 that threw into exile Ovunawan Ogbaisi, who was the Oba of Benin at the time, and they looted the palace. Now, the British must follow the example of the Netherlands. They must follow the example of the Smithsonian Institute. The Smithsonian Institute in the US last year released 29 objects. Now, Netherlands, 119. UK last year, one museum gave us 75 objects. Now, those are stolen artifacts, theft, thievery, robbery, which was at the center of the colonial heritage. And it's something that those who stole the identity, the cultural heritage of people all over the world, not just in Benin. They stole from Uganda too. They stole from Ghana. They stole from India. They stole from Greece. You know the Greek Parthenon marbles that the Greek have been saying the British should return. And the Koh-i-Noor jewel that is in one of the crowns of the British monarch. The Indians say they want it back because this is about identity. And I think it's very insulting, you know, that the British should say, okay, if you want to come and loan it, you loan it because you people, you don't have structures for keeping these artifacts. And in any case, if you take it to your country, your people will steal it again. And, you know, no, that's not the conversation. The conversation is about restitution, it's about memory, it's about, you know, making a recompense, that's the English word, recompense for one of the ills of colonial legacy. What was that other story again? President Tinubu leaving as ECOWAS chair and Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone taking over. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu became ECOWAS chair July 9, 2023, and he was re-elected by his peers July 7, 2024. So he has completed the maximum 2 terms as ECOWAS chair. And during his tenure as ECOWAS chair, we had this momentous event of democratic reversal in some states in West Africa with the alliance of Sahel states pulling out of ECOWAS. But in fairness to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he insisted on the constitutive act, the principles, the declarative principles of ECOWAS being retained, to wit, that the only means of change of government in West Africa should be through democratic means. And that was the initial position. But then again, he also led the process of seeking reconciliation with Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and trying to bring them back in the fold. And now that preoccupied him most of the time, and he laid emphasis on unity, democracy, economic integration. And it is interesting that Julius Maada Bio, who is taking over from him, is also emphasizing the same thing about unity, about regional cooperation, about economic integration. In his closing remarks yesterday, President Tinubu made the point that he is optimistic that these 3 states will return. Now, he remains a major figure in ECOWAS as Nigeria's president, and I believe that even, as a member state, Nigeria will continue to support Sierra Leone in making sure that, look, the negotiation with these states continue and that the objectives of unity, democratic consolidation, economic reintegration, challenges that ECOWAS faces. Julius Maada Bio is taking over when ECOWAS has to be concerned about the future. 1, institutional credibility. 2, the funding objectives of ECOWAS, and also the fact that ECOWAS at 50 is entering a new phase, is in transition, and it will be the responsibility to take the baton forward, having been given over to him. Quickly, on the Senate Review Committee on the Constitution, 40 states. The states we have at the moment, they are not productive. We cannot continue to create more unproductive centers. But there are concerns, ethnic, ideological, geographical, about state creation. But is this the right time to create more states. I think the Senate committee on this should not be driven by emotions. However, the other issues about women representation, independent candidacy, and all of that, they are relevant issues. And the thing to note is that the Constitution is a living document. You can always review it, you can always amend it in line with the realities that the people face. But creation of more states, in my view, well, will be quite tough. Although there are ethical and other emotions, ethnic emotions written into it.
Okay, so I think we can certainly all agree that there are more urgent issues concerning constitutional amendment at the moment, that the creation of new states and the issues that might emerge from that process. What is exciting to many and what will be a source of great debate will be independent candidacy and, of course, diaspora voting, which will include over 15 million into our voters register. So we'll continue to keep tabs on that. I'll take my attention to ECOWAS, which saw the handover to a new chair over the weekend. Now, prior to that, we saw the West African Economic Summit, where the Sahel states, those that have left ECOWAS, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, were invited. But as per my last confirmation, they did not send any representatives. So I feel that the talk from the new chair about being optimistic that these countries will come back into a fold is possibly just that. It's optimism, because the body language in the region is still reading towards the fact that a lot of the citizens of ECOWAS nation states are feeling disillusioned by this body, this organization. What are the issues? The issues are security, the issues are economic, and the issues, of course, are political. There was a survey conducted recently in Togo, and the outcome of that was that 65% of people in Togo feel that they would actually rather pull out of ECOWAS and join the Alliance of Sahel States, because they feel that the Alliance of Sahel States is gaining more momentum and has done more for its people in its short existence than they feel they have benefited from ECOWAS. Well, President Mada Bio spoke of trying to steer ECOWAS in a more people-centric direction during his tenure, so we'll be looking forward to that. It is without a doubt that under President Bola Tinubu, the organization itself suffered a lot of credibility threats, not because of the chair itself, but because of the happenings in the region, the shifts, the grumblings, the restlessness of citizens around the region. So it will be interesting to see how these developments continue, because as ECOWAS was meeting, Assimi Goïta of Mali was being given a hero's welcome in Moscow in Russia, where he's on a state visit. When you look at issues of governance, in Ivory Coast, President Ouattara has just declared that he's going to run for a 4th term. So the problems mounting ECOWAS are compounding. And I don't envy the chair at all, but we wish him all the best, because, of course, ECOWAS's success is the success of Nigeria and the region as a whole, because we know that Asia currently has 60% that accounts for internal regional trade. Europe, 70% internal regional trade. Africa as a whole only has 15% internal trade, not to speak of West Africa, which falls below that 15% as well. So there's certainly a lot of work to be done. Very quickly, before I round up on the issues around June 12th, I think Nigeria needs to be careful not to step into the territory that many African countries are currently going into, where we see that liberation struggles are currently being questioned. Those struggles that brought about democracy and independence are currently being questioned, because what this does is it trivializes our historic symbols. And as Rufai said, hands off. This is off limits when it comes to politics.